Mixtape Trilogy is the new film about the deep connection between musicians and a superfan. Award-winning documentarian and an Arlington Heights native, Kathleen Armitage, here to talk about this new film. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you for having me.
There's going to be a special screening this Sunday at the Davis Theater in Lincoln Square. Let's talk a little bit about the film. So we follow these artists and a special fan and that deep connection.
Yeah, so there's three stories in the film. There's three different music artists. So it starts with Indigo Girls, which a lot of people know, especially after the Barbie movie this year, where they're reminded of the Indigo Girls. And then the second musician is Vijay Iyer. He's a Harlem-based musician, composer, pianist. And then the third is Talib Kweli. And we found a super fan for each one of those and explore the relationship between the musician and the fan.
Did you go through the artists first and say, do you have a super fan you've connected with, or did you find these fans first?
That's a great question. It was a very kind of free-flowing sort of process. I actually found Mike Ford, the hip-hop architect who's in the third story. I found him first because I found his story to be compelling. So I didn't even start with the musicians, but we did have a wish list of musicians that I was, hoping would agree to be part of the film, because you have to go through a process. You have to kind of pitch, what are you doing? And they have to make the time. And we're so grateful to all of them for the time that they took with us and their contribution and their participation in our film. But yeah, it was Mike Ford first. Then I had a wish list. I think we reached out to the Indigo Girls maybe next. And once they said yes, I was, running up and down the hall of my house, just, because, I grew up with them. So, yeah, it was a kind of a process of kind of going back and forth and figuring out who might be a good fan to talk about the music and the relationship and how the music affected not just the fan's life, but kind of also the musician's life too. What's it like to have, what's it like to perform for an audience? What is that relationship? What's going on between that kind of mysterious connection between the musicians, the artists, and their fans, the audience?
I think there was a time before social media where these musicians versus your only outlet, that these musicians were the ones who spoke to you. Maybe sometimes before your family understood you or your friends understood you or your community understood you, you had these artists.
Yeah, I speaking to this before social media part, it's not in the film, but Talib Kweli did talk to us about that when we interviewed him, and he had some, as you wouldn't be surprised to hear, he had some very eloquent and strong opinions about that change, because it is a marked difference. Yeah, so before social media, and I think to some extent, of course, now, when we have a musician that we really latch onto, it's not just about always just kind of being entertainment, right? There's something in the lyrics or there's something in the melody that is touching and that we never forget and often ties us, as we all know, to moments, in our lives. We all have that, right? So we really wanted to talk about that mysterious connection and really show how it can be transformative and inspiring. And there's definitely some, social justice sort of messages in the film. All of that comes out of the music.
Let's talk a little bit about the Indigo Girls, because you mentioned Closer to Fine was in the Barbie movie. So if somebody was a Indigo Girls fan because of that song in 2023, that's a lot different than somebody in the late 80s, early 90s, because that may have been the only other time that you might have seen other LGBTQ plus people in the audience connecting to the lyrics, driving from city to city to go see this band. And the person that we get to see had seen the Indigo Girls over 300 times and became friends with them.
Yeah. No, I mean, Dylan is, like you said, they had seen the Indigo Girls, or have. It's got to be well over 500 now. When people see that in the film, there's usually like a gasp, But I think, the Indigo Girls really represented something very courageous, and also they produce beautiful music. I mean, so I think at the time for someone like Dylan, that, when the Indigo Girls were getting out there, that's a long time ago, that's 40 some years. There wasn't a lot else out there to kind of show you the way. And I think Dylan, you can watch the film. We hope you get to see this for yourselves, but really shows how important that relationship can be. It is a relationship.
And just to see how far we've come, because in 2023, an Indigo Girls song was featured in the movie Barbie, which is one of the biggest movies of the year. But you think of the 90s and there was controversy around their concerts. Ellen's show got canceled because she came out. I mean, it wasn't always an easy time for these artists, but we see the staying power and what, you know, these artists mean to so many fans.
Yeah, and I mean, I've gone to shows, and since the pandemic, and it's unbelievable. It's such a incredible community that has followed them for that long. And that's a shared history that's decades long. I mean, you can, the Grateful Dead, the Rolling Stones, there's bands that have that, but I do think that the Indigo Girls represent something different for all the reasons that you just shared. I mean, they are helping a whole group of people, generations of LGBTQ folks kind of come of age and show them how to do that and also have fun. The Indigo Girls definitely put on a great show every time that I've seen them. And Dylan, over 350 shows. It's hard to fathom.
It's hard to fathom. And then let's talk a little bit about Talib Kweli, because the fan Mike talks a little bit about that 80s song from Starship. We built the city on rock and roll, but because of his industry, he's like, why can't we build the city on hip hop? And really helped to shape his career.
Mike Ford, the hip hop architect. Yes. Mike Ford is a very compelling figure, and he figured out a way to put together architecture and hip hop music. When I first heard the term hip hop architect, I just, what does that mean? And we take that all apart in the film, and you get to really see how he merged those two loves in his life into his vocation, what inspires him, his life's work. And yeah, we chose Talib Kweli's work because he's, top 5 lyricist. He's one of the very best. And we were really grateful to have his work in our film. He's got very dense lyrics. It was something of a challenge to work with.
Well, I love the film. It's about an hour and a half, and it's about 30 minutes on each one of these artists and their fan stories. It's incredible. Go ahead and check it out this Sunday at the Davis Theater in Lincoln Square. Mixtapetrilogy.com is where you can go ahead and get those tickets. And again, all the proceeds are going to the People's Music School, which provides free tuition to children here in Chicago. And Kathleen, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.